Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's live webinar. We have a very special episode today to talk about film. Those you don't know about my background, I was a film student, and I have still working with my teachers and as well as fellow students. And it implements and as well as it reflects on my work. Although I'm not totally engaged with film, but I do marketing, and you know that film is an integral part of marketing. So we have a special episode today. We're going to be talking about 100 pages in 10 weeks, and we have a special guest, two special guests, and I will introduce them. So the first is Carl Schoenfeld, and you probably know him very well because we did, I think, 4 or 5 lives already, and he was my teacher, and I learned all of my tactics and a lot of things from him. So, Carl, thank you very much for joining another live. And how are you today?
Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Shah. Yeah, very well. Looking forward to this because we had a pre-discussion with Tom, and he's just doing so many things. I'm quite excited about that.
That would be great because we're going to be inviting our second guest, Tom Keenan. And he's an awarding writer. And those you don't know about Carl, he's a BAFTA-nominated writer, and he runs this online screenwriting academy. And we work together to get actually running this course and all those things. So, Tom, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. The sun is shining. And it's a real pleasure to be here, and it's nice to talk. And it's lovely to see Carl again, who's a good friend and a fantastic mentor. So I wouldn't be where I was today without Carl. So that's my first thing I'd say.
Yeah. So before I set the scenes, I just wanted to ask Carl, could you please give a brief introduction about you and 100 pages in 10 weeks?
Yeah, it's really, I came to the whole teaching through producing, and I was always using quite innovative digital workflows and so on. So that led to a lot of master classes and Q&As and events like this, which led me then to invitations by film schools and led me on to the University of Oxford, where I've been teaching screenwriting since 2016. And because it's a creative writing class, numbers are limited, but the people who'd taken this class wanted to come back with a new idea or with a new draft. And then we first started in true Tolkien tradition in an Oxford pub in the back room, and ran these workshops and table reads. And then the pandemic came, and so we moved online, and suddenly we were doing this with people all over the world. And still, there's people coming back every course I run. There's some people who come back after having benefited from it previously.
Thank you, Carl. So I would want to ask Tom about you because you are just new to these episodes of Live. So if you could briefly introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Of course. So I'm Tom Keenan. I'm a producer and writer for TV and film. I have my own company called Rosie Cross Productions, and find that rosiecrossproductions.net. And I develop and create television shows from existing IP. So I either buy the rights of books or the life rights of people, or find something that isn't in copyright, and I develop them, write scripts normally with people, and then work with production companies to get them further into development. However, my background is I was a teacher for 18 years and a musician for a while, and I got into screenwriting about 12 or 13 years into my teaching career. So I was an English teacher for a long time. So after about 12, 13 years, I wanted to write scripts. And so I did that for a bit, and then was lucky enough to come across an idea about the Shakespeare authorship debate, i.e. that Shakespeare didn't write the plays. And it was a team of people led by Francis Bacon. And I managed to write a pilot script. But it was thanks to and get it to some amazing people. An Emmy nominated, an Emmy winning producer and production company, and a Golden Globe winner, and an Oscar winner to be in the, hopefully to be in the show. Fingers crossed. So that's gone really well. I'll talk about the other projects later, but it was down to Carl's class really that he taught me the finer points of it, the screenwriting. So that's allowed me to go and sort of push on. And I teach. Sometimes I do some teaching for screenwriting. I've run some courses too. And I've been a script consultant, script editor, producing consultant. Sort of, I've picked up everything. So it's been an interesting career change, and it's largely thanks to the power of Carl's course.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to learn many of Carl's students. As I informed earlier, I was a student, and we had few lives with alumni of OSA, Online Screenwriting Academy. So my first question to Carl, this 100 pages in 10 weeks. I know that you have an intake coming from 8th of October. Can you describe a little bit about this 100-page in 10 weeks, how it will transform the writer? Just Tom describe your innovation and your guidance supporting him.
When people come to this quite often, like when Tom came, we first have a conversation, because this is really for writers who have got some experience with characterization, knowing at least their genre a bit, and story structure, which Tom had from working as an English teacher, and also his own creative writing, sort of getting ready to do this more professionally. So I'm making sure that there's always a variety in these classes, but let's say there's a sort of minimum awareness of these concepts that we deal with as writers. And I talk about beat sheets as a development tool in the introductory session, and then everybody writes 10 pages every week, and we come together to read, and then writers already experience a little bit. Maybe Tom wants to talk about that, because I think that was when we sort of looked at the Shakespeare story. It reminded us of, let's say, the Shakespeare we know, but it also propelled us to a completely different way of thinking about something that's quite familiar. So really, as a writer, you see where this really works, where it's clear what this is about and what it is doing, and where the characters are jumping off the page. But you also notice when maybe something needs a bit more work, when it's sagging a bit, and that gives writers a lot of feedback through experience, rather than, let's say, an evaluation and me making lots of comments. You experience the script. Maybe Tom, you want to talk about it sort of from your end?
Yeah. So I was desperate to get on this course as soon as I heard about it and read about it and saw it on LinkedIn. I think it must have been LinkedIn, and I didn't get on. Remember, I didn't get on the first course, but then I tried and I got on the next one that was available, because I think there were two. I was so excited because it was just I just loved the concept of it. I really wanted to sit with other writers and meet other writers. I think it can be quite, I wouldn't say isolating, but it's nice to work with other writers and get to know them and get to know their styles. And I think one of the I remember the first question that Carl said was asked about, had we read any screenwriting books? and I hadn't read any. And I think that was a sort of a deliberate choice, because and Carl asked me the question. I said, well, I haven't read any. I go to watch plays, or I read plays, or something along those lines. And that wasn't because I was being dismissive of screenwriting books. My experience was as a teacher. I'd read hundreds of creative pieces a week. I'd be teaching, Romeo and Juliet or Macbeth or something like that. So you become inherently fused to structure in a funny little way, which I think was part of the question as well. So I remember that then launching quite an interesting conversation, because I think that we'll probably come on to the finer points of it, but I think dialogue is always quite difficult to write if you don't really capture it. So for me, going to see plays was a way of being able to engage in that process. And of course, you've got a perfectly laid structure over sort of certain amount of acts. So I remember that being the first question, thinking, oh no. But I was honest, and I think that was the key thing. And then as the weeks went on, and we all did live table reads, which was just such a brilliant idea, where you each take a character in someone else's 10 pages and you bring the thing to life. And I'd written a script. I was writing a script about the Elizabethan playwright spy called Christopher Marlowe. And I remember each week we were doing 10 pages, and suddenly, if it was your turn and your one got picked, man, when those words came off, when people were reading your script, it didn't matter if they weren't professional actors. It almost validated what you were doing, because you could then hear the words come back at you. And I just remember thinking, that's just the best feeling as a writer, to hear things. And so that was the magic for me. That was the bit I really liked. My eldest son, who's 14, and he was a bit younger at the time. He used to love it when Carl's session was on, because he'd sit down and he'd just eat sweets in his chair. And every now and then he'd hear me sort of say, thou art a villain, or something like that. And then there'd be total silence. And he would say, why do you speak just sort of randomly on this thing? And I said, it's because we're reading each other's lines, back to eating sweets. But so, I remember that being that was just such a magical but simple idea, which I've then taken on into my own practice with others as well. So.
And that also allows everyone to learn from each other's mistakes.
Yes.
You also then see when with somebody else, I think sort of, with some, really the light bulb goes on. If you've got, let's say, somebody's protagonist, you're not really sure who that person is. And then suddenly on page 55, you find that person, you got their voice, you understand what they're afraid of, and, what they secretly desire, and all these things. And to have these breakthroughs together, then reflect on, what happened here, and what insights we have.
And you also got to know, I mean, I guess I'm all about the idea, I guess. It's the idea that is fascinating. We'll work the rest out later, but the idea is crucial. So to listen to 9 other people with fascinating and brilliant ideas, I mean, that was a pleasure as well. I mean, I remember there was a fantastic set of ideas, and it's just inspiring, isn't it? It's inspiring to be around people with really good ideas, and I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed listening to other people's ideas, and you sort of there was a rooting for each other as well. It's a nice group.
And how people can make these ideas alive. I mean, I still have that. I've been working with over 200 writers in this way, and sometimes I hear in the beginning, in the introduction, ideas where was really struggling to sort of become a film in my head. And then when people actually do it, and sort of they bring an angle to this, I think with you, it was definitely that familiarity with the world and that material. And as you say, you sort of had to find these characters, because we don't really know characters like that in real life. So every project has got its own challenges. I mean, if you deal with period characters who you don't know. You just the
Yeah.
lifting is just a little bit
Yeah.
harder to
Oh yeah, definitely.
to find these characters and get to know them.
But it also gives you great. They're also. I've been asked that, or I've been sort of, discussed that before. But because sometimes there's so little you know about these people, you can actually then inject what you want into them. And I think the why now, why this project, why now, is a crucial, question or set of questions, which overarches your project. That's something I've come to learn. Why this story? Why now? And I'm sure Carl's asked that millions of times, and I had to ask it the other day, but about a project which was really, really good. It needs a bit of development, but it's a very topical and it's a very smart idea. So that's always a good question to think of. Why this project? Why this story? Why now? And so with these characters where we don't know anything about them, so there's very little, for example, that we knew about Christopher Marlowe. Some bits, So you can inject this incredible. I don't know. It depends what you want to say, what you're using your characters, what you're using your story to say. It's Marlowe is about free speech. Marlowe is about completely redesigning the English language and being a complete genius, but also being completely mad, in a cool way. And he was very rock and roll. I always sort of likened him to sort of like Jim Morrison, from the Doors. So when I had that writing in mind, because I'm a big music fan, I was like, okay, I can sort of see him sliding around like Jim, down the roads of London. So yes, with those characters, you can inject. I think you can inject that sort of sense. You can have a lot of fun with those. But yeah, if there's not much about them, you can either have fun with it or you kind of. I was finding I was creating composite characters. So, for example, in the Marlowe story or the Shakespeare, there's so many people. This TV show that I'm developing or working with, there's just so many characters. Because if you leave one out, it's a thread that goes, and therefore this bit doesn't make sense, and that bit doesn't make sense, and why is that one suddenly popping in? So I learned to create composite characters, where you take three of them and chuck them together, and that's quite fun to do as well.
Because they're always different sides to us as well. It's also
that's it. We're as people, we're inherently different from day to day, second to second, and I think that element of how we react to things in certain situations is what creates the compelling characters that we like to see on the television or on the stage or on the film, or even people that we know. So that's good fun when you can do that. I've just done that in a film I'm producing about a UK rock band called the Small Faces, which I bought the rights to, and we decided that there were three people that had critical moments, but the thing is, there would be one new one in each act, which meant that the audience hasn't got time to grow to connect with them. So we just thought, well, we'll just create and put them all together, and then there'll just be one person throughout all three acts, and then the audience can connect with him. And the Bob Dylan film did that really well. The Complete Unknown film did that really well, and it's a fun way of playing around with character, and it's a good challenge as a writer as well, I think.
Is the Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan film, has an interesting conflict, and we always talk in the workshops how important conflict is in order to grab attention. In terms of his conflicts of almost betraying his mentors, but also being an innovator, and that's also. That's a good example regarding the why now question, to see how when you'd asked me in the beginning, would you care if somebody plays electric at a folk festival? I don't know. I don't care. It doesn't really matter to me. Let him not. But let's say it's through the film you can see that this becomes such a strong question of betrayal, but also being true to yourself.
Yeah.
Deciding between betraying his mentors and being true to his own creative voice as an artist, and becomes so. Oh my God! What is he going to do? Is he going to go electric? You feel emotionally involved.
Yeah.
And it's very good to look at these case studies as good films involve you in a question you don't really care about, and you find it super exciting as it goes on.
Well, I'm a massive Bob Dylan fan, so I was really intrigued to watch it. I thought Timothy Chalamet was phenomenal. It was such an incredible performance. I was stunned he didn't win more awards. But sometimes you don't need the awards if the art's great, and if he put 6 years of his life into that performance. So it really tripped out of the screen. But I agree very much so with that that conflict. And I think that you're right about staying true. He was an innovator, and the film I'm working on about the small face of Steve Marriott, who was the singer. Such a compelling, interesting guy. Again, very quite combative, a bit like sort of Bob Dylan, very, very combative man. But he just wanted to play music. He just wanted to be on stage and play music. And he was surrounded by some fascinating people. But again, I guess, Carl, it comes back to that question you would have asked very early, is that what's your character's motivation? Which can change over the course of the film and the course of the story. But that idea of motivation, so like Bob, the Bob Dylan, he wants to go to New York and play music, which he does throughout the film. It's just the music changes and the backdrop and the clothes and the shades and the hair change. But that central, I used to call it like the stick of rock, where you break it. And at every point of that stick of rock, you can see what the character's motivation doesn't really change. And it's the same with Steve Marriott. Steve Marriott, the singer in the Small Faces, who Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin described as the best of us. That's a hell of a thing. He's one of the UK's greatest singer-songwriters from the 60s, and he was a complex man, but at all points, all he wanted to do was get on stage with his guitar and sing. And I think that's that makes my job as a writer. I've co-written it with one of my childhood heroes, Paolo Hewitt, who's an incredible music journalist, and he's become a friend. I consumed all of his books when I was 16, and now I'm working with him, and we take the mickey out of each other's football teams, and we're now invested on this project. He wrote this amazing book about the Small Faces, and there we are writing it together. But the job was made easy by the fact that motivation was so simple. And sometimes when you lose character, and I remember this from the course as well, when you lose sight of, when you feel the story's getting away, when you feel that the story is just not quite, and you're getting frustrated and you're throwing all your pages up in the air and getting angry and annoyed, it's likely because you've lost that sight of what your character's motivation is. And so if you can circle back to that, and I think that happened a lot during our feedback when we were giving it to other people. Is that what's your character? What's the drive? And if you can isolate that at any point in the story, then you're away. But that comes from sort of things like Aristotle, and it comes back, doesn't it, to Aristotle's Poetics and the way that those early plays that certainly then inspired the Shakespeare canon or the Elizabethan canon, that then moves us into the modern age of storytelling. It's saying that, but it's like cave paintings, isn't it, as well? Look at the stories; they've all got motivations to hunt the bear or to kill something else. So motivation is. I don't know what you think about that, Carl, but I think that's just linking that again to your Bob Dylan analysis. All that conflict, yet he's still the same guy with his guitar, like you say.
Did you find for the small faces story, why now? Do you have you found
Do
an
I have an
answer to
answer
that?
for? Oh, I like it. Why this? Why now? Well, I mean, I can talk on two levels, really. I mean, on a market level, lots of people are looking for music biopics. So it makes sense on a market level to have one in your canon, because people say, "What have you got?" You know, and that's music. Okay, well, because of that Bob Dylan film again. I mean, I think people suddenly production companies right. Well, we need our own. Why this? Why now? Okay. Well, I think it's. Here's my answer, and it's going to sound bizarre, but it's to do with Oasis, the band Oasis, who have just reformed, and obviously they are now doing this incredible reunion tour. And I thought, well, it's shining a light on British culture again in a really positive way, really really positive way. It's allowing us to be nostalgic. We like nostalgia. It's making us feel comfortable and safe in a very uncertain world out there at the moment. And when things are uncertain, sometimes we go to things that make us feel comfortable, and that's nostalgia. And the Oasis, I mean, I was a huge Oasis fan as a kid. So it allowed me, I guess, to kind of reflect on the importance of that. And again, shining with, I mean, there's been such negative coverage of British culture, such negative coverage of where we are culturally. So I thought, well, I actually wrote to Paolo Hewitt to say, have you got the rights to the Oasis book that he had written years ago? And he said that one's gone, but I've got the Small Faces one. And I said, well, okay, that's great. That's even better, because there's this and I thought from an audience point of view, if you've got like 5 million people buying tickets for Oasis, 75% of them are going to know who the Small Faces are because of the connection there. So, and when I went to see the gig at Wembley, it was just this huge, joyful outpouring of emotion and nostalgia. And I think, therefore, by shining a light on a British pop band who were really, really inspiring, they started the mod movement, which was a huge, massive cultural shift in this country. It allowed us to look at the 1960s again, in many different ways. So I think, yeah, I mean, it was that Oasis reunion that I was like, okay, that's a really interesting. Okay, why are people going mad for this? And it's because we all want we want to be 30 years younger. Essentially. Well, I don't know about 30 years younger, not today, but I mean, so I think it's about nostalgia, shining a light on British culture, and because that's happening at the moment. And it's music and rock and roll and all of that stuff. It's an antidote as well. There's so many terrible things happening out there at the moment, and it's now coming into our country in England, and I mean that in terms of just lack of understanding about culture. I think in this country, that we're a multicultural country, and we need to embrace everyone and everything. And there's a lot to be proud about, and I think we were world leaders in music in the 60s, without a shadow of a doubt. And I think this is a very underrated band. And again, just attacking this one on, it's a working class. They were 4 working class boys. One of them being Steve Marriott, who had the voice of a generation. And really, what should have happened to them is they should have gone to work at Dagenham Ford factory, because they were from working class. Nobody cared. And I think we have a struggle with the working class situation in this country as well, and I've seen it with children and young people, where they're written off, they're not given they're not given the outlet. So maybe it's about the arts. I mean, Steve Marriott he went to Italia Conti, he's kicked out of Italia Conti art. What's it called? The acting school. But also how the arts can be so powerful to get people out. Not rescue people, but Steve Marriott, if he had if no one had picked him up for singing and playing guitar, he'd be working in the factory. Well, he probably wouldn't be, because he was a bit of a hustler, but that's what was expected of you. And I think if we're not careful and we take the arts away as well for young people in this country, it's going to be a disaster. So I mean, there was it's a big answer. Sorry, Carl, that seems to be really long and waffly, but
No, not at all. Because sort of
lots
what we arrive at, it's, you know, it can serve as a real inspiration, and that seems to be what you're passionate about. Is, you know, that here people who've walked a particular path that can be helpful for lots of other people right now, and you can point it and look at it. See, these people, you know, usually wouldn't have a chance, but you see how they were able to find a voice and express themselves, and you know, and enthuse millions with that.
And you know, I mean, I guess I'm probably drawn to outsiders who are. I don't know if this is therefore a very Freudian reading of my own self. I don't think it's that deep. But I felt a little bit when I was at school. You know, I wasn't like it. You know, I felt a bit outside from that point. I had friends and I enjoyed playing football. I enjoyed music. But I didn't want to do what everybody else wanted to do. I wanted to do something creative. I didn't want to be in an office. I didn't want to be what you know, they wanted to go to London and make hundreds of thousands of pounds, and they're probably doing that now. I'm this sort of lowly writer. But the thing is that I've followed that passion. I've followed that creative edge. And I think that's a really important message for anyone that wants to start writing or go on Carl's course. Is that if you believe in your ability as a writer, you can go really, really far with the right people around you, people like Carl, and you know, I've got other fantastic sort of mentors too. You can go far, but it's about, I think I'm definitely drawn to those kind of people, like Marlowe, like Marriott, like Francis Bacon, like Steve Camps, the painter that I'm making a film about, who's down in Cornwall. These are all people that are slightly left of centre, but have a big influence, and I think that that's cool.
But it sounds like you're anything but a lonely writer, because you're obviously talking to people all the time. I know, you know, but for contractual and legal reasons, you can't sort of name names, but you took the Shakespeare project out there.
Yes.
And you found somebody whose interest, you found this painter who then trusted you to tell your story. You talk to rights holders of books who trust you to do something with it, because the last thing any rights holder wants is somebody sitting, because clearly there was a conversation that they believe that you will do something with that intellectual property of a book. So you know, probably would be good people here also. Yes, sort of, we do a lot of writing, but we also talk about how to get out there in the workshops. What made it possible for you to sort of go out there and do that really difficult thing when you spent months refining characters and rearranging scenes and sort of being really in the thick of it, of your project. But then you suddenly, in order for the screenwriting to work, you need to tap into a completely different region of your brain and talk to people.
You do. And it's about relationships. If the key message about anything is about relationships, you know, here we are. I'm sitting here with Carl, and you know, we met in Cannes this year at the market. Had a lovely time catching up and having a chat. And I think there are two. I think there are two sort of spins on that theme. Number one was that I sort of did, I think, probably opposite of what all the books say. So, you know, don't send it to agent, and don't do this, and it needs to be this, and it needs to be that. I remember I watched this Shakespeare documentary about him not writing the plays. I just looked at who the director was. He was a guy in Norway, and I just emailed him. I found his email, and I just emailed him, and I said, "Can we have a chat?" I don't know really. I didn't really have any kind of concept that you didn't do it like that. But anyway, you know, you get lucky. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Anyway, he called me and we had a lovely chat. And I said, I haven't got any credits. I haven't got any. I don't have any experience at all. But I'd like to write a pilot episode based on your documentary. And he said, okay. So I did. And I didn't hear back. And then a month later, he was working for Amazon Prime. and in Nordics. Now, that gave him access to lots. He liked the script. So the next thing I know, I've given up teaching because I was going to do that anyway, and start sort of doing some writing, teaching writing, or try. I just wanted to kind of try and make a living from it. That's all. Trying to do something different. And the next thing I know, I'm in Cannes at MIPCOM. I'm meeting with showrunners and agents and producers. But the thing that did it was that I had a friend who was an actor in Colombia, Ed Hughes, and I said to him, "I've written a script. What do I do next?" And he said, "Well, you should send it to some actors." I said, "Okay, how do I do that?" "Well, you go onto IMDb Pro and you find all their information, their contact information through agents." I said, "Okay." So I just came up with a query letter on an email, and I sent my script to Helen Mirren, Ian McKellen, Eric Jacobi, all those sort of old school Shakespeare people, and they all came back and asked for a script read. And then by the time I landed in Cannes, I had a call from Derek Jacobi's agent, and he wanted to attach to this Shakespeare project. Now, Sir Derek Jacobi, for those who don't know, is a sort of master of the stage and screen. And I said, "Great, what does attach mean?" So I was really clueless. So it was about throwing, I think, and then, I met this amazing producer who in Cannes, who didn't really have the time to see me, but as soon as he heard the words Derek Jacobi had attached, he said, "Come and see me." And I remember I was at the Cristal Bar in Cannes having champagne, and this guy gave me a massive great hug and said, Derek Jacobi is my favourite actor in the world. So we've been working on the project ever since. So that's just serendipitous. And we've been all around the world, talking to people. But I think the answer, Carl, is to throw yourself in there and take a risk. It's about taking a risk, isn't it? It's about getting out of your comfort zone. So whenever I've taught or done sort of consulting with people, when they ring, and I do a sort of 6-week little run of one-to-one work with them or something, I always say, what are you going to do with it at the end? Because that, yes, it's lovely to have a lovely script and it looks great, and you've got your front cover and it's all cool, but you've got to then go out there and take a risk. And I think so. I went really from moving from writing to producing very quickly, and because I was attaching actors and going to meet them and speaking with directors, and I soon learned that actually your script needs to actually meet the needs of 3 people, which is the producer, the actor, and the director. And that's quite a tricky thing to pull off, I think. But then I think if you just write a good story and you've got really interesting characters and the story flows and it goes, and it makes you feel something. That's the thing, isn't it, Carl? It's the emotion which you need to feel. And if you can make people feel that from your writing at certain points, and learn as well that the script is the starting point, it isn't the end point. I think that a lot of early writers go, "Oh, I've got to write a perfect script." And I'll tell you now, the best script I ever wrote was 61 pages for a feature, and it got optioned. Because I just, that maybe, I'm not saying that Carl's 100 pages, that's the sweet spot, isn't it? That you kind of want to reach that, because it's sort of 90 minutes, 100 minutes of film if it's 1 page per minute. But the Small Faces script is 130 pages. Marlowe's 152, that got optioned. But then you look at the Freddie Mercury script for Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, it's 160 pages. Sometimes you just have to write the story and hope that those emotional beats will land and make people feel things, but also understand that it's the starting point of the thing, because the director's going to get it and go, "Right, bosh, change, or I want to add this bit in, and here's my vision." The actor will adapt. So I think that that's a really important thing to get over as well.
Yeah, and in terms of length, yeah, I mean, if you have something that creates that emotion, then other people will talk to you
Yeah.
what they
Figure it
think
out.
might be able to go.
You figure it out.
Likewise, if it's too short, it also creates a space for other people to bring themselves into it, and because that's really what you want. Somebody saying, "What about
Yes.
that character doing this?" So once they engage it and once they live in their
Yeah.
in your story world that you've invented,
I think,
you've
yeah,
got
I think
them.
there's too much emphasis, I think, in some of the books that I've seen or by people that offer screenwriting advice. I think there's too much emphasis on it needs to be this, you know. It needs to fit within this box, and if it doesn't, then you'll never make it. And you get one shot, and all this kind of very not negative, but it's just it's not real, is it? It's not
Restricting. Yeah.
very, yeah. It's art, and yes, I know it's got to be commercial because you're writing for film and television, which is a commercial entity in itself. But I think, yes, of course there are. I've been working with this Emmy Award winning writer, and what I've learned about television, when I read the pilot draft, I thought, well, the treatment, I thought, my God, like there's so much in this. But then when you read the script, it was it was phenomenal because it was just like it's just bash, quick scenes, and that I have been writing in film and then learning from how to write from someone from television. That was really interesting. So yeah, I think you do. I think the way that you engage with the story and the writing is it's easy to rely on the books. It's easy to rely. Obviously, you want a guide. You want someone to sort of help you along. But I think what Carl's course did, it didn't tell me what I had to do. It taught me how to think about it. It was more about processes than it was about necessarily output. Yes, you're aiming for 100 pages because that's a good way, and obviously 10 weeks, 10 pages, it makes sense on a mathematical level. But also, it was always questions. That's what I loved about Carl Singer, because we will all sit there probably. Carl will or will not know them. Oh no, who's he going to ask the question to next? And it got you solving problems, and I think that's what, as a writer, you have you spend a lot of your time doing, isn't it? Solving problems and trying to work things out, and not be restricted by, right, you need to be at this page, you need to have achieved this, and by obviously there are key structural points, and Carl talks about the beat sheet, which is fantastic, but also he didn't say you must do this. It was, have you thought about this? And that was the key difference, I think, and that's why I love the course so much as well.
And I think sort of what you've been talking about and what you're really applying, but I wanted to make sure that our audience really recognizes it, is how much we are in the business of creating surprises. So if so I think I'm always talking to people about the guidebooks, not because I think that they are working very well. I also don't think that they are fundamentally wrong either. I think they can be useful to make you aware of certain workflows, concepts, and
yeah.
so on, certain mechanisms, and so on. But yeah, don't follow to a letter, because our job is really to surprise people. And if you just follow the books, you won't be able to surprise. And so you want somebody to open your script and read the first few pages. Oh wow, I haven't seen anything like that.
Yes, definitely.
Then you've bonded.
Yes, I think that's it. I think it's the surprises, and I think that everyone's got a unique voice. If we all wrote in a certain way, where's the fun in that? There isn't. You want to be wowed by someone's ability to do something different. That's why Bob Dylan broke through. We go back to Bob Dylan and we go back to the Small Faces. you know.
Yeah, exactly. And we see why it's important to
Yes.
play electric, in order to
Correct.
keep this tradition
Yeah.
of the folk music alive. It's not just the
Uh-huh.
same guys playing the same songs, but you need
Yeah.
it's like that. It's like that with filmmaking. If all the same people do the same stuff all the time,
Yeah.
attention wanes. It's not interesting.
Exactly.
But if
And
new people come in,
and you know, if you think of a writer, I mean, even if you think of someone like Christopher Marlowe, back to Marlowe, he wrote he had his Mighty Line, which they first heard in 1587 in a performance of Tamburlaine, and it was the first time they had been he'd written that the audience had heard blank verse, non-rhyming blank verse. So it's this rat-a-tat, 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 in iambic pentameter, and of course it's probably like hearing, I don't know, like rap music or you know, things. Language has to evolve, it has to change. Writing has to evolve, it has to change. I remember when, the mad thing is, I do watch film and television, but I don't watch an awful lot of it, simply because my mind's eye is so focused on writing or producing something all day. My creative space is so drained by the end of the day that the thought of sitting down and watching something. So I listen to a lot of radio plays. I really enjoyed that. I like listening; it's quite relaxing. So I listen to lots of things like that, and that's a really cool way, by the way, for writers to learn different, because you're listening to dialogue, and I think that's always really nice. And then how the dialogue and the character drive the story on.
and we've also had people in 100 pages in 10 weeks who got their script made as a radio play. I mean, sometimes it just sort of goes into the direction. Sometimes you don't know what a story wants to be.
Yes,
and they were on the BBC and commissioned as a radio play. It's maybe not how you started, but that also helps.
No.
It gives a proof of concept to producers.
I would love to be a radio play writer. If someone said to me, like, come and write radio plays, oh my God, I would absolutely love to do it. And I'm sure, you know, knowing the drive and the kind of motivation I have to try different things. Right, I'll write a screenplay, and then I wrote a play, and then I wrote this, and, you know, so I do like to test myself, and I like to kind of try new genres. Radio play for me, I know it sounds absolutely bonkers. When I read that Play for the Day is coming back Play of the Day is coming back in England. And for those that don't know, there was a long-running series every Sunday, I think it was. It was a Play of the Day. And every Sunday, a play was performed, but they broadcast it on television. And it launched the careers of actors, writers, producers. It's such a simple idea. They got a bunch of writers, commissioned their play, and put it on the television. And when I read that Channel 5 are bringing it back, I said that's a stroke of genius. And that, again, you know, I'd love to do something like that. That would be amazing. But I was only talking about that concept about 6 months ago. I said, it was with my dad, and I said, can I have a play of the day? Wouldn't that be brilliant if it came back? And now if you look at how the new voices and then the writers involved in that are going to be seen by people, their work is going to be there. I think it's wonderful. So it's things like that announce the new voices and allows us to keep up with the contemporary changes. And trying new genres is really, really important. Definitely.
And reinvigorating, thinking about, here's a genre that may be a little bit tired. How can we make that more appropriate for today? But I also noticed we haven't seen Shah for a while. I just want to make sure, Shah, that we cover everything, because we haven't got that much time left either.
Sorry.
Yes, I was really enjoying your conversation, because it's nostalgic, I would say, the way we think about film and other things, because as I was a film student, and you know, when you talk about specifically Bob Dylan and all those actors and Shakespeare's and all those things, it's just you can get into the immersion of creating something different. So the way you are talking about specifically 100 pages in 10 weeks and all those script writings, it's really fascinating. So so please continue the conversation. I will just I will intervene when the time is up. So please carry on.
Well, I mean, go on. Sorry, Carl, carry on. Yeah.
Yeah, just wonder, because I think some people here will wonder. I mean, if you meet somebody like Steve, the painters, and
Yeah,
how
Steve
do you
Campbell.
run a conversation? Where, at what point does the idea form in my mind? There's a movie story in here, and this is how I want to tell it. I just wonder if you can
Of course.
trace that for people who maybe are not used to
Yeah,
thinking.
of course. I read. I'm obsessive. I obsessively read the paper, the newspaper, be it online. But I find it's just a brilliant way to absorb story. It's pretty much the first thing I do. You know, when I come down and have breakfast, I'll look at the news. And do you know what? That is a really interesting thing, because I remember sometimes you just react. It's just there's a reaction to it. You just feel that there's a story there. And I remember reading the Observer magazine, the Observer paper online, and yeah, there was this story about this guy. He was a retired builder who started in his spare time painting whales, cartoonish sort of childlike whales, and he had now become this really sort of revered outsider artist, with, you know, selling his paintings for thousands of pounds. And I thought, well, that's an arc, isn't it? Retired builder starts painting, becomes successful, so that's an arc. So
It's also about reinvention. Just wanted to highlight there's a theme about people reinventing. I don't have to be like this. I can be different.
Yeah, and it's about retirement as well. You know, it's a story about retirement and trying things and being, you know, being open to things. And also it's about stereotypes. We were very stereotypical. Steve was a working class builder. And on paper, when you meet him, he's lovely. He's such a lovely man, very eccentric. I mean, you know, when I met him, we flew down to Cornwall to meet him, and we were saying, oh, you know, what if he's really boring? Like, what if he's like, because it's a tough sell, and in a little way, isn't it? Although it's a fascinating, and it made national news, made national press, etc., etc. But he's eccentric and larger than life, and he's a fascinating man. But as with all people, we're icebergs, aren't we? What we see and what's beneath is really interesting. So he was and is an art collector, and has done since he was a kid. And the knowledge that he has is more than anything I've ever met with anyone about art. He knows everything. He's got a huge, great lockup of studio of. So what he does is he buys. What he did was he went around auction houses and bought these vintage frames, and found pictures, but it realised that it was the frames that were selling the paintings. So he would buy them for £10 and they'd be worth 500, you know, something like that. So he had this incredible ability to take a frame or to find a painting from an auction or a charity shop or something, and then, you know, for it to, you know, marry the two together and create something and then sell it on for more money. That's because he studied the art. He studied that. He was really, really, you know, bright guy. But the stereotype is that, you know, your average builder probably doesn't go around, you know, buying and selling art. But then we mustn't have those assumptions of people. Otherwise, we'll you know, that's just, you put people in a box, and that's how, you know, that's just a really bad thing to do. So when he started his own painting, he didn't think it was any good. And then a local art dealer thought it was brilliant. And then, you know, I think he's made sort of close to £500,000 in sales. But he thinks it's, I don't know what he said. I sort of don't know why people are interested, or I don't know why. So I thought it was just a compelling story. Again, I just thought it's a nice story about a nice man doing nice things, And sometimes that's okay. I know we have these gruesome, horrible murder in cold blood stuff, and podcasts, and recreating serial killers and things like that. But it's a nice story about a nice man doing nice things. That's okay. We can do that. And there's conflict in that world. I think there was someone that said to me, but where's, like, it's a bit too easy, isn't it? I was like, you're kidding. Like, that the conflict between himself, he felt like an outsider. He felt like he didn't belong in that world, the art world. So, and that's a huge sense of conflict, the inner conflict. It's not just the outer conflict. It's not about having to escape a prison camp. It's about, sometimes it's the internal conflict as well. So I think to sort of, again, just to sort of answer that question, I read a lot of stories, I read a lot of newspaper articles or magazines or whatever, and it's really easy to see the arc of that. That was an easy one for me. That was just an instinct. Wow, okay. Retired builder, painted Wales. Let's look at that. That's a really interesting story.
Another transformation. Shah.
Yes, thank you, Carl and Tom. I really enjoyed your conversation. It's really touches my heart, and we could do more, but we are nearly end of the session. So at the end, I just wanted to ask Carl. You know that you are running these 100 pages in the 10 weeks from October. Do you have any message to convey to the listener? They are watching this live webinar.
Yeah, I suppose it gives you an idea to look around what may be around you as a story, something you've experienced, somebody you know. And also how even, if you want to come to the workshop on 8th of October, it's fine, but there will be other ones, maybe how you position yourself, like this painter, that maybe by watching the right things that are relevant to your story in terms of genre, in terms of characterization, in terms of structure. Also, look at other films, because that's ultimately what you're learning from, is great work and how it makes you feel, how it moves you, and then look into how the writing contributes to you feeling like that, and then you're already rolling in the right direction.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carl. I just wanted to ask Tom.
Yes.
Do you want to have a takeaway from this conversation if the future writers wanted to engage in 100 pages 10 weeks career development as an established writer? What do you ask them to do?
What would I ask them to do on the course? Is that what we mean?
On the course, or apart from the course?
Just embrace everything. Just listen, and if you're there and you've joined the course, you're passionate about writing, you want to further your interest in it, and you might aspire to have a career in it. You might not. You might just want to do it because it's fun. So yeah, just look. Carl is a lovely man, and it's a pleasure to know him, and he's become a good friend. And I think if you've got that at the center of whatever course you're running, and you respect that person, and they're enabling you to improve yourself, not just as a writer, but as a person, then that's you turn up every week with your pages, and you throw yourself in. I mean, I could give loads of kind of make sure your writing's done by spend all your time writing all in the week. One of the questions I think on the form there, and I'm looking at time quick, is that it said about discipline and writing. Writing, you do it when you can, right? Every writer's got a different method, so there isn't one that sits. But just throw yourself into Carl's course, get to know the people, get to make your feedback positive, constructive, and just have a load of fun, because that's how great stuff's made, right, Carl? That's it. Enjoy the experience, and then keep in touch with people. That's the key thing too. because you're building relationships.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Carl. I hope that we can bring you both for a future live webinar, because I think we have learned huge things today, and maybe in the next one we can talk about specifically a pilot study that you have done, or maybe a script that already been successful. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Tom and Carl. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and we are just nearly end of our session. So I welcome everyone for today's live webinar, and thank you very much for watching this live webinar. This will be recorded on replay, so you can watch it on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, all other mediums. And please support these channels, as well as if you wanted to engage with the 100 pages in 10 weeks, you can go to onlinescreenwritingacademy.com, and you can find the courses over there. And apart from that, we will welcome you again in the future. And thank you, everyone, and bye-bye.
Join the course. It's really good. See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.